Hello YouTube, it's Tony. So today I'll do a breakdown video on how I do 999% Telos on Revolution. Now this is my first ever bossing breakdown video, so I hope things will go well. You can also watch me on Twitch as well because I will sometimes stream myself doing Telos. First of all, before I start, I have a disclaimer. This is not meant to be a guide, as I will make a complete guide on Telos in the future. It's more or less just a compare and contrast video. Also, I'm trying to get feedback as well on how I should do my bossing guides, so this would be a good start. Obviously, it's a really difficult boss, so it's going to take a long time to understand, and that is why I'm going to have to do research on how is it like learning Telos again. To start things off, I have the equipment setup, and all of this is using nearly best in slot gear. Although it's easily doable without that, it just makes my kills way more smooth. I have Inquisitor Staff, which is the best in slot staff here, then I follow that up with full Elite Tectonic. The perks I have are written on screen. EOF Amulet is really nice here because you get to use Gothic Staff's special attack, as well as combining this with Reaper Necklace and Amulet of Souls. Blast Diffusion Boots is also nice because it lets you charge detonate faster. The auto-cast spell I'm using is Blood Blitz. Ice Barrage will also be used for situational purposes, so in order to enable manual spellcasting, you have to go somewhere in your gameplay settings, or else your auto-cast spell will change every time you manually press a different spell. For the aura, unfortunately there's nothing else that works better than Maniacal. After this, we have the inventory setup, and once again, this is mostly best in slot. Pretty much the reason I bring every item here is written on screen. For the rune pouches I bring, this is for blood and ice spells, spellbook swap, plus borrow power with entangle attuned towards this. Now the familiar I'm using is Nihil because it's by personal preference, although Hammer with a Ripper Demon is better than this. In addition to this, here are the other stuff I have unlocked. The Livid Farm spells are really useful, trust me, especially Disruption Shield and the Borrow Power spell. I really like the Fury of the Small Relic because it's really good for extra adrenaline building. Limitless Sigil also proves very vital at P3 and P5. The next section I'll get into is optimizing Detonate. Some people don't know this, but when you charge Deto, you can actually unload this, an auto attack, and another ability all at the same time. In order to do so, charge Detonate, and then wait till at least 80%. This is equivalent to 1 global cooldown if you wore the Blast Diffusion Boots. In order for this to work, this next step has to be done very quickly and in the following order. First, click on any spell for an auto attack, then hit Deto, and finally follow that up with any ability you like. Now this is perfectly doable on Revolution in case anyone's wondering. Some people like to wait one tick longer before you release Deto, and that will give you the maximum damage. I generally like to combo this up with either Rack, as it will get a damage boost if you were to use ice spells, or Wild Magic because it's among the strongest threshold abilities. Yeah, so here is a demonstration right now, as you can see. And here's another demonstration. Then I'll talk about the Soul Split opportunities. The best times to do so is either A, when Telos is done, or B, when he's doing a special attack. I like to combo stun, and so what I will do is use Impact as a bait stun first, and then follow that up with either Asphyxie or Deep Impact, and this time you can start soul splitting after you use Impact. Now this is key, and Asphyxie will always be 3 hits, and then you can cancel this with any ability as the 4th hit does not stun Telos. I like to use the buff bar when it says 2, and that is when I start canceling that. Also, do note that Telos can break freedom every 20 seconds from 250 to 999% Enrage. So when Telos does a special attack, I can use a non-stun ability, follow that up with a stun combination to keep him locked. I would generally do this at P4 out of the fonts. Finally, let's get into the phase by phase strategy section. This is suited for 250% to 999% Enrage. Each phase is in separate kills as I'm talking about my ideal ability rotation. I've also written down the rotations for that phase on screen. Starting off, we have the first phase, and the summary for this is you want to do a DPS Sunshine rotation, and then clear the tendrils, ideally phasing him one auto attack after the tendrils. So what I'll do is get 100% adrenaline at the War's Retreat adrenaline crystals. Now I position my character so that I can diagonally surge towards Telos. What I like to do before I surge is hit Devotion, and then immediately surge, as you can do this outside of global cooldown. Then I set up my Sunshine with both Planted Feet and Ring of Vigor equipped, and don't forget to throw your Vuln Bomb and drink the Adrenaline Renewal at some point during this. As I click Telos to attack during his spawn, I would queue Ice Barrage from my action bar or click it if you don't have ability queuing enabled. My character will then automatically hit Sonic Wave at the same time. I would then use Combust and walk underneath him for maximum damage, which you should always do when it comes to using Combust. I would follow that up with G-Staff from EOF Amulet for a big 10 to 12k hit, as well as lowering Telos' defense. After one basic ability, I would use 3 stuns in the following order: Impact, Asphyxiate into 3 hits once again, then cancel this with Deep Impact followed by Rack. After using 2 more good basic abilities, Telos should break freedom once again. Now I would charge up Detonate and wait till it says 80% on the buff bar. After this, as Telos throws down his Tendril, I would unload Deto plus Ice plus Wild Magic all at the same time. Yeah, as you can see right here, this is clean and clear and under control, no damage taken. He will always do one auto attack straight out of Tendrils. At this point, Telos should be within 30k HP or less from phasing. What I like to do next is use Rack, Impact, Deep Impact, and then finish it off with either Gothic Staff, Rack, or 3 hits of Asphyxiate depending on Telos' current HP. After completing Phase 1, this is time for Phase 2. The summary for this is I want to keep Telos out of the beam and use good basics and thresholds while moving him around, and also stunning him to reduce the number of special attacks. Ideally, I like to phase him either after, Hold Still, or the Virus attack. As I usually phase him one auto attack after Tendrils, this is going to be my rotation. He will do his Magic Onslaught after 2 auto attacks. I'll start with Combust, follow that up with Impact and Deep Impact, and finally Rack. When he's no longer stunned, I would use Corruption Blast, then walk him to the corner or escape while he does one auto attack. This is to lure him out of the beam, as the beam will always spawn underneath him at first. As Telos chases me out of the beam, what I'll do is Asphyxiate 3 times into Rack. Follow that up with Wild Magic, then charge up Detonate, and then release this into Rack. He will usually start charging his Magic Onslaught after Wild Magic. Now, if the beam luring is done correctly, you should only get 1 Magic Onslaught attack, although sometimes you may get 2. After this, I would use Impact, Deep Impact, Rack, and G-Staff. Now, I'm gonna prepare for the Hold Still, so you gotta anticipate. Usually the beam will swap either after or before Gothic Staff, so what I always do is run him across the middle. Between now and the Hold Still attack, I would use basic abilities and then res as soon as he says Hold Still. So after I take this gigantic heal, I would use Wild Magic or a strong basic ability. Then stun him for the rest of the duration and finish him off with basic abilities. Ideally, make sure you have at least 88% because the next phase I'm going to prepare for Metamorphosis. Let's get into P3 of Telos. You're mostly utilizing Metamorphosis rotation with basics, as well as limitless sigilling the thresholds while inside the red beam, so that you can DPS him down before the golems start charging his nuke bar. Of all the 5 phases, this makes this the quickest phase. Some people like to start in the corner, which is safer, although it's faster to do this in the middle. If I phase Telos after Hold Still or Virus, he will do 10 auto attacks before an uppercut. So what I'm gonna do is build to 100% adrenaline. Then after this, I would use Ring of Vigor with Metamorphosis. Alongside that, I would hit an Ice auto attack just to bait his freedom. Because meta lasts a very short amount of time, I would use 3 strong basic abilities. Now get into the red beam as soon as it spawns, so you could either use Bladed Dive or Surge to get in there. I would then hit my Limitless Sigil and then dump Wild Magic, follow that up with Deto plus releasing this auto and Asphyxiate into Rack or Dragon Breath. He may start breaking freedom at this point. From the P3 effect, your adrenaline should start draining automatically. After this, I would finish him off with either G-Staff or a few basics, or build for a threshold ability, but make sure, most importantly, stay in the red beam. But yeah, other than that, just get ready for P4. Alright, so this is perhaps the most mechanically hard phase of all. There are 3 key components to focus on. The first one is adrenaline and food usage. Make sure you have at least 50% at the beginning and end of each font so that you can use your thresholds, and for minimizing eating, this is because P5 has very heavy auto attacks from both the golems and Telos himself. The second major component is golem freezing. This also comes with 3 subcomponents, which are positioning, timing, and social distancing, or else, if you don't do these correctly, they could snipe your disruption shield on a so much power, or better yet, you'd get stunned by a volcanic. The third major component is also stun locking Telos and phasing him. This is because it minimizes auto attacks and potentially never getting the so much power, as dealing with special attacks is a lot harder and slower, due to defensive abilities being on cooldown after he fires the bomb. The first sub-phase would be the drop down, and usually I would have under 50% adrenaline to start with. So because of this, I'm gonna drink an adrenaline renewal as it should be off cooldown. Telos usually walks towards melee distance, which means I can get 1 to 2 abilities before needing to stun him. Ideally use Combust, then Impact, then Asphyxiate into Deep Impact, and finish him off with either Gothic Staff or Rack depending on his HP and how much adrenaline you have. As Telos phases, stand exactly where I'm standing and res the first hit. The 3 golems spawning will usually converge in a line, or a 3x3 formation. If not, you can just move 1 or 2 squares out of the font just to reposition them. At this point, you'll have no target, so you're free to use defensive threshold abilities without consuming adrenaline, and this applies to every font from now on. Because fonts do a lot of damage, I can drink Bruise if needed, although it does lower your stats, so you gotta be careful as it will lower your accuracy as well. The main abilities I would use are Reflect, Anticipate, then target the middle golem in the pack with any basic ability. After this, I would freeze them with Ice Barrage, and because I'm using Revolution, I'm gonna have to use Preparation ability alongside this auto attack in order for it to work. Now I'm gonna walk to the opposite end of this font. Optionally, you can use Corruption Blast on the golem pile just to heal back small amounts of damage. So now I'm gonna click on Telos and charge up Detonate, then equip my staff instead of Wand and Defender. So you see the message that says Telos is preparing to fire a bomb, right? 4 ticks after the warning, what I'll do is launch Deto with Ice Spell as well as Wild Magic as he's firing his bomb. After the Deto rotation, I would hit Impact, then surge diagonally off global cooldown as you survive the bomb throw. At this point, golems will start chasing me. So now I'm gonna keep Telos Stunlock with Asphyxiate into Rack, or Deep Impact or Gothic Staff depending on how much HP is left. Now, the second font is actually the hardest part of P4 because not only is Detonate not available, but there are also several golems. So what I'm gonna do is wrap around the edge as the golems spawn, and then use Devotion before I enter the font. If you're standing exactly where I'm standing, the golem should be positioned usually like this, although sometimes it's a slightly different layout. This time I would use Revenge as my second ability, follow that up with Reflect or Anticipate or Freedom if there's a volcanic in front of me. Now I'm going to target the middle golem, and in this case this is the corrupt golem that's between the 2 volcanics, and I would use either 1 to 2 basic abilities. Finally, I would freeze the golems by using the Preparation ability. This time when I'm targeting Telos, I won't switch to a staff and instead use a Wand and Defender. So instead of using Deto, what I'm going to do is use an Ice Auto as well as Wild Magic. In order to do so, I would have to click Telos, then manually hit Ice plus Wild Magic ability. Then I follow this up with Impact and Surge. Now I'm going to Asphyxiate into Deep Impact, then G-Staff to finish the phasing. This is actually really dangerous because golems will start charging me, and the last thing I want to see is Telos using his so much power attack while being stunned by a volcanic golem. When Telos phases, I'm going to immediately use Freedom or Anticipate, then walk towards the middle as the new golems will chase me. I would Spellbook swap to Borer Power, and then target the last golem in line. Make sure your surge is available because I'm going to surge afterwards through the Golem pack. Also, I like to throw in Corruption Blast because it gives you free Soul Split heals. Font number 3. So once again, I would use Res and Reflect so I can build Adrenaline. This time I would make sure I'm clicking Telos first so I can target him. Now I can safely Soul Split throughout the entire font because the golems will not chase me. Now when it comes to Detonate, I'm going to release this with a staff using Ice and Dragon Breath. Then I follow that up with Asphyxie into Rack or Deep Impact, depending on how much HP, so I can finish him off to head over to P5. If this is done properly, golems will usually start chasing me slightly before or after he's dead. Yeah, so perhaps this is the easiest part of P4, although the last part is to ensure that I have high Adrenaline, which is exactly why I'm using Dragon Breath instead of Wild Magic. Finally, we've hit the last phase of all, P5. The general idea for this is to Sunshine in the Green Beam, then Stunlock Telos and clear the golems, as well as DPSing and stunning, and then barricading the virus. I would also clear the virus after the beam swaps, and then finish off Telos. So what I'm going to do is hover over my Vuln Bomb keybind, then keep my hands on the food, the brew, and flick to Magic Prayer. This is somewhat of a long cutscene, so when it's over, I'm going to immediately drop the Vuln Bomb afterwards and quickly eat and flick to Magic Prayer. Now I'm going to click on him and use Dragon Breath and Corruption Shot. Also, at the same time, I'm going to run towards the left side of the beam, and I try to stand 2 to 3 squares away from Telos. If the beam is on the right side, I would just surge as soon as I see this. Assuming that I have 90 plus Adrenaline by this point, I can Sunshine immediately after touching the green beam. This time there's no need for Planted Feet or Ring of Vigor. Now immediately after Sunshine, I would hit Limitless Sigil, then use Asphyxie into Deep Impact, follow that up with Wild Magic. Telos is now stunned, so I'm going to swap to Melee Prayer as the golems can hit very hard at this Enrage. You can also eat up if needed since the green beam gives you Adrenaline very quickly anyways. So the Rockfall warning will either occur after or before the Wild Magic. Now make sure you're at full HP and then swap your Defender and Wand and hit Reflect while drinking the Power Burst of Vitality. If your HP is not very high, Power Burst of Vitality is not going to be useful, so keep that in mind. After Reflect, I would use Revenge so that I can do more damage. Now pick the middle golem that's closest towards Telos. I'm going to charge Deto to 100%, then release this with Ice Barrage and Tsunami. This will not only hit the golems but also Telos at the same time. At this Enrage, because sometimes golems aren't finished off, I'm going to use Corruption Blast and Dragon Breath. Because golems will start hitting hard once again after the Reflect is almost up, I'm going to have to keep spam eating. I've written in brackets when to use Anticipate if there's a Volcanic Golem spawn. At some point I will use Barricade, so it's either one of 3 scenarios. A, after the second Rockfall, B, my HP is low and the golems are alive, C, neither my Freedom nor Anticipate are available to use, or D, the virus has come out already. Because the green beam gives you unlimited Adrenaline, I would use Gothic Staff special attack every other ability, so this way it does a tremendous amount of damage. Ideally, I like to stand at least 5 squares away from Telos, so that I can surge to melee distance upon the Rockfall warnings. Now because it's better to clear the virus after the beam swaps, I'm going to use Debilitate if Barricade is almost up. After I clear the virus, I would finish off Telos by using Gothic Staff every other ability as well as big thresholds. You can also use the Saren Godbow special attack with the Ingenuity of the Humans so that it does 20k damage. I like to camp the red beam if I'm going for faster kills, while the green beam is safer, but it's slightly slower than that. Some people like to onslaught the rest of the way through, but I find that this is more consistent, as well as it doesn't block you from doing anything else. Now back beams are a little bit trickier, so this is going to be my rotation. The rotation is pretty much the same at the start of the fight. What I'm going to do is wait 1 tick after crossing the left beam, and then hit Deep Impact plus Impact while running towards the green beam. Now I'm going to set up Sunshine so that it's 5 to 7 squares away from Telos, and then use Limitless quickly into Asphyxiate, and cancel this with Wild Magic as soon as the Rockfall warning happens. Immediately I would use Reflect and drink the Vitality Potion, but of course, make sure you have high HP before doing so, or else the Vitality Potion isn't optimized. I would use Revenge and clear the golems in the middle pack. Unfortunately, the Deto plus Tsunami will not hit Telos this time. Now usually I would use Barricade earlier than usual compared to side beams because Telos and golems got free auto attacks, so it burned my food. Not to mention that the virus may come out earlier than usual. Once again, I would clear the virus as soon as the beam swaps. Pretty much this is the same rotation to finish this off. You can either stand in the red or the green beam. And this is pretty much my entire breakdown, those who made it this far. I do have a 1 hour footage which I'll leave that link in the description, and I averaged around 5-minute kills. Now this video is 20 minutes long, so I can't imagine how long my complete Telos guide would look. In all honesty, I didn't do the best job at visually syncing every single frame and ability, so hopefully you'll see an improvement in the future. So yeah, thanks for watching and I hope it helps. If I missed anything, feel free to ask. Also, be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already, because I will do more bossing breakdown videos or potentially guides like this in the future.